Next, we have Jonathan Reichenthal, CIO of Palo Alto, talking on, I guess you could say it's kind of related, interesting viewpoint that might be an umbrella viewpoint.
Thank you very much. I feel like I should tell some jokes or something here. I think this is a remarkable turnout for a Thursday night. Food, right? It was the food. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So hopefully it's worth your while in terms of staying for my little talk here. I'll spend about 15 minutes or so talking about the big picture, the stuff that is trying to change the world. I got some caller friends here tonight as well. If you have technical questions, because I'm actually very lightly technical now at this point in my career, although I started technical. But I rely on very smart people like all of you, particularly the gentlemen that I asked to join me this evening. So if something comes up that's particularly interesting, please do ask, and I may refer it. So this is about Palo Alto. We're sort of a new organization in terms of IT. We're a full department now reporting to the city manager. And it's a new day. Really, since January 1st of 2012, we said, you know, let's create white space and sort of invent the future. And I sort of was an unorthodox choice. I'm not a G-man. I've over 20 years in the private sector, so this is my first public agency opportunity, and it's a unique one. I didn't join just to run IT. We have an opportunity to really shape the future of democracy, to really sort of throw out some ideas and innovations that can shape the future of government, sort of the new day of government. So it is a new day in Palo Alto, and we hope to join some of our sort of forward-leaning peers in cities like New York City and San Francisco, who are doing some really neat stuff. So we actually created our vision right around this theme. This is the vision of the IT department. We want to build and enable a leading digital city. We don't want to be the world's best. I don't think we can be that, and certainly we're a very small town. So if anything, I would say we want to be the leading city of a city of our size, right? Palo Alto is about 65,000 people who live there, and about 150,000 people during the day based on workers who come to spend time with us. And it's a very special place, just like Mountain View and a lot of the cities around Silicon Valley. We've no idea how this small town has so much impact on the rest of the world. We have some ideas, some thoughts, but it is remarkable. And as I kind of travel and you know, talk to my colleagues in Europe, they remind me how this little dot on the map, or this collection of cities, really is setting the course for the rest of the world. So what is a digital city? Well, it's kind of cool because we get to define it, right? We don't have to look at a definition and say, well, we'll follow that. There's very little written on this subject, so part of what we're doing is saying, well, we want to help create sort of we want to create a definition of what a digital city can be. So I kind of threw together this little diagram here that says very little, but helps me. So a digital city really is about an organization or a government that uses internet-based technologies to work together internally between departments, with citizens, with businesses, and with visitors. And I throw in two other aspects. One is that it's done in a very open, transparent way. And the second thing, it's done through partnerships. It's probably not lost on any of you here that we don't have any money, right? The governments are needing to do more, the revenue is staying flat, the entitlements are skyrocketing. So we got to do the business of government completely different, because actually not only are these dynamics at play, less money, but there's greater expectations. Citizens expect more. So it's a really tough problem to solve. And as a technologist or a scientist, I think you'll all agree that tough problems are exactly what attracts us to this business. So let me talk about what I think are some of the characteristics. You can disagree or you can add to this list. Right? So we believe within our city, and this is when I talk city, I talk about the actual organization of the city. Just like any mature enterprise, we are striving to provide everybody with access from any device at any time. Now it's a journey, actually. I'm not going to I'm not going to mislead any of you. We're starting from desktops in Palo Alto. We're moving to laptops. Soon we'll support Macs. But the goal is, I want to tell the city workers, when you come to, use whatever you like. I mean, that's a, you know, let's move past this idea where we control your physical hardware. You know, we want you to have access through the device that you love. Many of you have preferences, and we want to do that. What else have we got? Open data. Open data is probably one of my favorite areas. You know, governments collect enormous amounts of data. It belongs to you, it belongs to me. Right? We don't have proprietary data, we're just collecting it on your behalf. But for many, many decades and maybe centuries, we've stored it, whether it was on paper or now more recently digital, and it's very hard to get to. You know, you've got to make a request, some government official has to find a way to get it, they got to put it into a format you want, and they got to deliver it to you. It's very tough for, mainly, still for cities, right? At the state level, some interesting stuff has been done, and if you're following any of the federal stuff, this is really, really neat what's going on with data.gov. You probably follow that. They have now 400,000 sets of data that is machine consumable. It's in various stages of various formats that are useful to you. And people are building apps around this data. Governments are asking people to build specific apps around the data. So at Palo Alto, if we can make the data of our city available, all of a sudden the city becomes a platform, right? So we want to just be sort of an API, like we are a generator of data, just like Google is, or Facebook, or Twitter, or any organization that generates an enormous amount of data. And we want to have like an API that says, well, the people are the application, and the city is the database. You can go ahead and extract and use the information as you see fit. Help us, you know, it would be great to have help with what we want to do. Yeah, we see the cloud sort of not only as a way to reduce cost, which we think it can in many instances, but also a way to use packaged apps or software as a service, just make it easier for us to deploy more quickly and not have to have the burden of building out our own apps or systems for the city. You know, I don't think any of you would disagree. A city that's in the business of hosting and managing email is in the wrong business. You know, we ought to be in the business of public safety and public works. Right? We spend a lot of time managing systems that we're not particularly best capable of. Not lost, clearly there's a social focus. We're trying out all sorts of things at Palo Alto, and we're enabling people to fail. We're going to do a lot of stuff, and people are going to ask, you know, probably will say, enough already. But that's probably a good reflection of whether we're doing a lot, and if you're doing a lot and you're failing, you're hopefully having some successes, right? So we're trying some stuff. We recently did a Twitter Q&A with our mayor and our city manager. It's the first time we did it. It's rather unique actually for a city. Lots of businesses are doing it. So people have the opportunity at every level of the city and beyond actually. We had some people outside of Palo Alto also send us questions. And in real time, I was sitting there with the city manager and the mayor. We were able to answer questions, and it was kind of a neat experience for people. But it's just the beginning. We can scale it. That was the first time, and it was relatively small. One thing that we learned is it takes a while to think of the answer, and then not only think it, but then to generate an answer in 140 characters that doesn't provoke controversy or may be interpreted as inappropriate. Some of the areas, sort of more future-thinking areas of the digital city that I'm excited about is the idea and concept of the augmented city. Right? This notion that there is an awful amount of, if you have some sort of mobile device and you are, whether you're a visitor or just somebody who works in the city, and you walk around and you want to know information about your environment, your mobile device could produce an overlay of that and tell you all sorts of interesting things, like what business is upstairs, you know, in a particular building. Or maybe the historical significance of the Palo Alto Internet Exchange, for example, just at the university. Really need to be able to supplement this sort of real environment with an abundance of virtual data. And then we talk about smart cities, right? And this is a growing space. You'll notice that some of the big vendors are starting to pitch sort of solutions in this space, and probably reflects that there's an awful lot of money to be made in smart cities. When you get the likes of Fujitsu and IBM and HP and others really starting to compete and offer solutions. But if you think of just one solution where you as an individual could have much more understanding of the power you're consuming, and then aggregate that data and be able to produce and enable power in completely new ways in cities. This is really exciting and completely a new day for cities. And finally, collaborative, and we can take that in many, many directions. The way I'd like us to think about it right now is from the perspective of the doors are open, right? We want to invite interesting companies, interesting startups to collaborate with us. Let's build amazing things together, and if they work, you know, let's show it off, and the rest of the world can leverage that. So, you know, it's an ask that I have of many of you, because I know there's a lot of businesses in here, a lot of CEOs and other folks who are trying to build interesting things. We'd love to collaborate with you. So that's sort of the big picture. I hope it's interesting to you, and you got a preview before a lot of people did. This is only half-baked, as you can see, but we'll work in it. We'll get better over the next few weeks and months. But I want to talk about a case study that kind of brings together many aspects of what I just talked about, but also has a GIS slant, which is more specific to this audience. So let me give you a quick background. Like every city, we have an aging infrastructure. Right? We have roads that are old, we have buildings that are old, we have bridges that are old, signposts. It's daunting, by the way, for every city in the world. You know, the big cities in the world are at least 100 years old. You know, they have to be replaced, you have to refresh stuff. It's not, bridges fall down eventually, you know, if you don't replace them or you know, retrofit them. So you've got to do this work. The sad thing is, like I said earlier, it's not like we got an abundance of cash to do this or revenue that's increasing going into the future. In fact, we have quite the opposite. So in Palo Alto, we were interested in this. How much money is it going to cost us to modernize our infrastructure? We set up what was called the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission. A group of, I don't know, like 18 people, something like that. They went off, you know, mixed backgrounds, and they sort of looked at the infrastructure, the roads and bridges. And we thought actually it was about $500 million it would take to upgrade our systems to the place where we wanted it. There's bad news and there's good news. The good news is it's less, it's $300 million. And the bad news is it's $300 million, right? And it's, you know, do we do all of it? Do we do some of it? And that's an important question. How do you make selections about the infrastructure things that we've got to do in the next 10 years if you don't have $300 million? Or you can raise a lot of money, but you can't raise that much money. So we want to help these people of Palo Alto make that decision, because they're going to have to make the hard calls and tell City Council what we have to do. So one of the things we did as a subset of all that, the team got engineers to rate the quality of all the streets in Palo Alto. And there's actually a standard. It's a pavement standard index or pavement condition index. And it goes from 0 to 100, 100 being beautiful, brand new road, perfectly surfaced, 0 being dirt or gravel. I'm just kidding, but very, very poor. And every road, I think 435 miles of road, approximately, we're rating. And we stored that, we stuck it into a database, and here you go, right? So this is your typical sort of, you know, big data, right? And particularly in the public agency context. You got every street in the city, and you got a number. But it's not very actionable. It's kind of hard to interpret that, and it's hard to make decisions from it. So let's go ahead and make this data available. Let's make open data. And let's get a partner, someone on the outside, to help us build an app quickly, because we want to be able to see this visually. So we looked around, and we connected with a group called Code the Change at Stanford. Code the Change is a small group of students to try to start a movement similar to Code for America, where you do, software developers get together and they do stuff for social change. And so it was a 24-hour session, a hackathon, effectively. starting at 1 on a Saturday, running to 1 on Sunday. No sleep. You kind of work your whole way through, and they were students of varying levels of expertise. Some of them were seniors, some were more junior than that. And so I went ahead and sort of mocked up a prototype. Here you have it, just a simple screen, which is going to have put in the address, bring up a photograph, and the rating of the street. And then we went ahead and we met. This is at Stanford, the actual hackathon itself. And the students are over there on the right-hand side. John Thayer, who's there in front of me, is actually right over here. He's our GIS manager at the City of Palo Alto. And the custodian, by the way, of that big spreadsheet that I just showed you, or that volume of data. And we hacked away, they hacked away. I got very tired and I left. They didn't, they kept working. And they drank a lot of coffee. And then the next morning they produced an application. And they did their best. And so by the next morning, by 1 o'clock, they had produced pretty much all the features we wanted. So here what you have is you have the rating of the street. You have, in this case, they chose to use Google Maps, Street View. So if you type in the address based on that database, it uses the Maps API to pull up the picture and has a rating. And the city manager still doesn't know why there's cats beside each of the ratings, even though I've explained to him several times. No, those are placeholders. We ran out of time and I didn't have the photographs, so they put cats in there, but the city manager said, leave the cats, leave the cats. No, he didn't say that, I'm making that up. Okay, so, he's a good guy. So we went ahead and we started playing with this. And so basically lessons learned, it worked good, but it didn't work great and had lots of issues. So we kind of got a certain amount of the way. We learned a lot from this exercise. Well, along came Knights in Shining Armor, which we got Nate Levine and Dakin Sloss back here with California Common Sense. They now have a private company called Delphi, which is going to be trying to develop applications for high-performance governments. These guys, in the meeting I had with them, I said, would you be able to tackle this? We got a prototype, and they graciously agreed, maybe now regretting it, I don't know. But they went ahead and they recreated it using that prototype with a fully fledged set of code. And as you can see, the two solutions are fairly similar, so we know that the prototyping concept works quite well. So this now runs, it's working, you can see it, it's streetsweeper.ca of paloalto.org. 99% of it was working, was completed, but the 1% final bit was completed just yesterday, so thank you so much. You don't know how much the city appreciates that. So now what you have is a tool that the city can use to type in addresses and see the conditions of all the roads. Right? So yeah, it's one solution, but it's important because now we have a tool that was co-developed, as you can see, using open data, sort of a hackathon approach, a partnership, a collaborative partnership. And now we have better data to be able to make important decisions about that Blue Ribbon Commission that wants $300 million to approve all the infrastructure.
They could work for free as well.
We're working.
Yeah.
We'll do an infrastructure hackathon. Yeah. Okay, so thanks to those guys. So that's sort of the concept. Now I just want to show a few extra things, and then I'll bring this to a close because we only have a few minutes. Now, so this is our this is our newest application in terms of, kind of a brand new way of creating solutions for the community. We do have another application that runs. It's running, sitting on top of our Maps engine, basically, that we use. And what this does is this shows actual public works stuff in progress. Okay, so on this particular map that you're looking at, the red blotch is a street that has existing repairs happening, and so you can sort of triage the two things. If your street is looking in pretty bad shape, and you can see whether it's scheduled to have repairs or not. One other thing I want to point out, excuse me, is I think you might find this interesting. So the number, this is actually a good street in our example here. This is Hamilton Avenue, where this is right outside City Hall. It's 83. We actually want all the streets to be 70 or better, right? And so it's not quite there, and that's sort of a goal that we can use this tool to help us with that. So another example of us using GIS apps here to help inform our community. And frankly, literally as I was eating Google dinner and sitting here, I took these photographs because I thought, now that you're all here, you might like to see some of the other stuff we've done. And so this is an app called CADStat. It's only used by public safety. So this is used by the fire service and ambulance. And it, again, uses this is running on Android, some neat technology to overlay not only the position of the current police cars and fire engines in the city, but any activity that's happening, anything that they're addressing. So that's currently in place. That's used by our public safety teams. And then very similar to the gentleman, the CEO of, gentleman from Citizen 911, we have a similar app. And so we in our city have neighborhood, oh there you are, sorry, right there, Mr. Prince. So we have a whole lot of people in the city who have the responsibility in the event of an emergency to report what's going on. They walk around and they will photograph with their smartphones damage, earthquake damage, whatever it is. And it can be either offline or preferably online, so it can be synced back, and we can get an entire overlay of what's happening in the city. So the person who walks around, the citizen who's volunteered to do this work, and we think there's about 200, maybe even more people who are empowered and trained to do this. They go ahead and they enter information about the event that's happened, and they can take a photograph, same thing, and it shoots it back. Just as a sort of a little side story to this, we realized very quickly that one of the limitations of this is in the event of a catastrophic earthquake, telecommunications might be down, right? So, the wireless piece of this is no longer capable, and that's a big chunk of this being really meaningful. So Palo Alto has a dark fiber ring in it. And I know those of you who live in Palo Alto, you're passionate about this, and we don't use it near as much as we should. But we could have sort of sprouts off of that have wireless points in the city specifically for emergency operations. And so in the event of a catastrophe where even the big telcos are down, we still have Wi-Fi capability through these strategically placed stations. So that's a upcoming sort of proposal. So that takes me to the end. So thank you very much. I'm now, I guess, make myself available for any questions. This gentleman here.
Do you have any intention of what you're going to do with the empty borders location on University Avenue?
You asked me, do we know what we're going to do with the empty borders location on University Avenue? I should know, I don't know.
It used to be a nice place to hang out. Now it's all boarded up.
It's a beautiful building, it really is. It was a theater at one point. Yeah, really nice.
Palo Alto's their own electric utility. Are you somehow involving any changes to that and the data? Are you including that in any of your data?
Yes, we think, so we're very early in this. We're only sort of, many of the government officials in Palo Alto are just hearing about even the term open data for the first time. So we're playing some quick catch up. And I think utilities has some of the most amazing repositories of data that would be really, really useful. Particularly since we're so focused now on sustainability and energy conservation and trying to do our bit with regard to climate change. So they have an enormous amount of data that we think we can expose, and smart people will do great things with it. Yes, sir.
My company works with a lot of government data. One of the problems that we run into is, there's a lack of uniformity from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And the other one, which is a specific question for you, is, are you planning on just basically opening up any data that's not considered sensitive and making it available online so that the huge world of developers don't even need to interact with you to come up with great ideas for how to facilitate that data in ways that are useful for the populace? Or is this going to be a situation where people who want access to data need to really contact and deal with the city on a one-to-one basis to get access?
Sure. Do I need to repeat the question? You got a loud voice, so maybe people. Well, are we going to make open data available based on request, or will we post everything? So, great question. I think there are levels of maturity to this. So initially, we'll only post we'll be conservative. Let's put it that way. So things that are safe. And you think like this, for example, like the scores relative to roads, safe data, and then gradually we'll open up more. It's a fact of life when you work in government that all your salary information is the property. It can be known by anybody. So instead of the press who likes to know the salaries requesting it from us, and us going through the minutiae, we just make that available. You just have that. But I think then there's a second phase, which is I attended the Palo Alto's Neighborhood Association meeting recently, and our community is very engaged. It's terrific. And the nature of privacy is very subjective, right? And so we have to be sensitive to that. I think that we can have people weigh in on anything that has the potential to be controversial. I think the end game, though, is that if you are a person within the city who creates data, you automatically have to make that available. That actually, there's no middle ground between the creation of data and making it open. And so the end game here would be that you would never contact IT or myself. If we're collecting data for some purpose, you can go to our open data page, data.cityofpaloalto.org, and it'll just be there. I mean, that's the game plan. Yes, sir. Whoa.
So, would it be possible to go through that report of repair necessary, say, and get the data on all the bridges, and be able to find out which bridges might need to be replaced, so that a structural system can be called and can be brought in to do that work?
I'm not sure if I entirely understand. So the question...
Is that data available, so if I wanted to find all the bridges that needed to be replaced at the same time and schedule converging with a new product?
Oh, I see. So the data does live in something, right? That's the beauty of open data, is that today I'd say some database somewhere, maybe John knows where it is. Open data means you don't have to ask the question, it's just posted out there. And that's what we got to do. We got to take that infrastructure data and just post it. So you could do with it what you like. So the research that the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission did, that is stored. That is in a format that just needs to be exposed. It's not yet on our website. That's my point. It will be exposed. Yes? Blue.
Both of you, the last two guys here, have talked about an idea that I'd like to disabuse people of, which is that in a disaster, phones won't work at all. The reality is that in Haiti after the quake, in Christchurch after the quake, and even in Japan after the quake and tsunami, SMS still work. And so we tend to sort of go to this Armageddon scenario where nothing is working, when in reality there's a tremendous number of situations that are emergencies where these kind of technologies are really useful, where SMS is going to still be working. Voice may be shut off because it's overloaded, but SMS is still reliable. So I just wanted to kind of remind people to keep in mind there's lots of these in-between scenarios.
Thank you. It's good. Yes, sir.
So are you planning to do something special at the hackathon at the end of the month in Palo Alto?
Yeah, so does everybody know about the Super Happy Block Party? Well, so you're all invited. It's on March 31st, starts at 1 p.m., runs through 1 a.m. And what it is, it's a mix between art, music, technology, a lot of networking. There'll be food trucks there. It's going to be a total blast. Eric Schmidt is behind. He's one of the sponsors of it. And so, and the City of Palo Alto is hosting it, and we're hoping it'll be a great success. And the goal is, yes, we'll bring down a few. We'll take with us a few data sets. We have kind of a short list. I haven't yet decided which are the right ones. One of them might be the salary information. Just because it's kind of topical. If you opened newspapers recently, always highlighted. But we collect, for example, quality of water in our streams up at foothills, for example. That's really interesting stuff. The tide levels. There's some neat stuff that you could use, and if you're really future thinking, you could think about it as a way to predict weather patterns as a result of that data, for example.
Just if you're looking for another case study, sort of an area that comes to my mind, having dealt with Mountain View on a development project, and being acquainted with just simple things like the Planning Commission's agenda, where it's going back to Mono's very first slide. It's like the diagram was broken off, and the only thing that resides in these documents, these working weekly and daily documents, is text.
Yeah.
And opportunities, even just from our point of view of geospatial, for making that more at least more visually appealing, and certainly useful. So just a suggested case study.
It's terrific, and it's also a reminder of, like, we don't have to think too big around some of this stuff. It was shared with me the other day that a lot of the minutes of council meetings and things like that and proposals are in PDF format, and a lot of our community likes to reuse those documents and don't have a way to manipulate PDFs very well or extract graphics and things from them. So that would be a case of making, for example, the minutes of a meeting in a variety of formats, right? So you consume them in any way, or you use them how you still fit.
Or perhaps just suggesting that if there's an APN parcel number, put a link.
Good stuff. There was quite a few other questions.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did most of Facebook move from Palo Alto to Menlo Park?
Yes. Did most of Facebook move to Menlo Park?
Is part of this new, level of importance I'm sensing on IT and Palo Alto in any way related to that move?
Is our kind of focus on digital city and innovation related to, for example, Facebook moving? The answer is no. No. I mean, Palo Alto is we finite space. Most companies outgrow it. We're not building high rises, I don't think, anytime in the future. And so I actually go around and meet sort of startups that have been underway for maybe a couple of years, and they'll tell me, oh, we're hiring 200 new people this year. I mean, these are kind of numbers. And they have no office space to move into, and they have to move to another city. They're moving to San Francisco, for example, we know that. We think it's a problem, but it's unrelated, if that's the way to answer the question. But we're very conscious of that sort of space constraint that we have in the city.
Two more questions.
Sure. Sir.
Are you thinking of blasting Wi-Fi over the whole city, like Mountain View does?
Yes, we would love to do that, and we have the capability, we have the interest. Now we got to kind of line those things together. We have the funds, so I think it would be very. From my perspective, and I'm just going to say as a citizen and just as a person, sooner the better.
What kind of metrics are you thinking about?
For open data, specifically? What kind of metrics?
Now you're working in city government, everything goes back to per resident, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, the problem we have with cities is that everything gets so measured statically, because you go pay a consultant, they come up with a study that says, oh, this is broken for X, Y, Z, and that's just back in 1970, and then you pay for another study in 1980.
That's true.
That's how general plans go. Every 20 years you have to update the general plan, and that's when you take an idea of what's going, a snapshot. So now what you're going to have is real-time data about how your city's performing and how happy the customers are.
So, it's a big question. We have, I'll just kind of brief answer because it deserves a much longer answer and a much longer discussion. The digital city allows us to measure more things more quickly than ever before. And that does provide a sort of a real-time way of making decisions. If I think specifically around some tactical things, like if we're trying, stuff around the Twitter Q&A or some other, initiative that I can, or even our external website where we're going to have much better analytics. My view is we don't wait 18 months to make decisions based on anecdote. We have real live data and we'll make decisions quickly and we'll fail fast. So the good news is it'll be better than it's ever been. And I'm a strong believer in metrics and measuring against objectives. So we hope to take advantage of that for sure. One more. Great question.
I admire your creativity, but it seems like a tremendous amount of redundancy since we have over 3,000 counties in the U.S. and many more times cities. And quite honestly, this seems a little bit kind of like common purpose out of the UK or some Fabian socialist micromanagement babysitters who want to watch us. Do you get any pushback like that, or do you see the commonality with common purpose in the UK?
So I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
So, actually, that's a great way not to answer the question. I'm just kidding. So I was at the conference of CIOs of large cities last week in DC, and they have many more months and a couple of years now experience with things like open data or crowdsourcing app development, and the universal response is that the citizens love it and it's been very successful. So I'll go with those metrics, but we need real data. The other, I think part of your question, maybe I got it wrong, was whether we are duplicating effort potentially.
Exactly.
And where we are, we will definitely piggyback on other cities. For example, there's data.gov, right, which is the federal response to open data. And we're going to see in a few months cities.data.gov. And the goal is that instead of every city and every state having, there's a state.data.gov as well. Instead of all states and all cities having their own implementations and their own variations and frankly no set of standards, let's all kind of bring our brains together and sort of say, if Chicago does it really well, let's just use that, right? So I buy into that entirely. I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to reinvent anything. That's it. Very cool questions. Thank you so much.